Hey, what up, Ink fam? Okay, today I have a big ass tattoo to do. It's gonna be a calf tattoo, Resident Evil. It's gonna be Nemesis with one of the zombie dogs. And I'm super excited about this one specifically because it's a full color portrait style tattoo. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good day today. All right, we're here. We made it. All right, here goes.
I feel like it's one of those just like those toxic masculinity things.
Yeah, right. We're like, nah, bro. Fuck, I'm not gonna be.
Look. Nails too. So
oh yeah.
Like, I'd rather have to deal with that shit than go get it. Like I've had the surgery done twice.
Oh, dude, that sucks.
Painful, bro.
Hey, what's up, Ink fam? So for this section, I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about the tattoo and my approach. First off, a little bummed out because my client last minute decided to change from the Nemesis as the main element in the design to the zombie dogs. We made one solid zombie dog in the forefront, and then because we didn't have the zombie dogs at the bottom or one zombie dog to kind of like create that design, we decided on a silhouette of zombies in the forefront, kind of like moving forward with some light leaks in the back. And I think it looks pretty sick. So the first part of this tattoo is going to be really getting that silhouette to look nice and solid. So as you're seeing here, I'm using a 7 liner and a 9 round shader. The 7 liner is a 12 gauge and my round shader is, I believe it's also a 12 gauge. I like to use the 7 obviously to outline, and I like to push my outline into the dark area a little bit more so that way it blends really well. I also like using a round shader. Sometimes when you're filling in black, when you use an outline and then start using a mag to fill in your black, you can end up seeing the outline. You can tell the difference because sometimes the mag won't saturate as much as like a sharp point would, like a liner. So I like to use the round shader instead. It gives me like a nice, really solid black. You got to be careful with this because you could chew up the skin using the round shader. I learned this trick from a couple artists. One of the main ones that I like that uses the round shaders a lot is Steve Butcher. Obviously he uses different needles and everything, but that's one of the main needles he does, and you can create a lot of detailing with that and saturate really fast. But again, you got to be careful with it because you can chew up the skin really easily. Now I'm using a mag. I think I only set up a water cup to create my light tone. So I'm just kind of dipping into the water cup, finding the tones that I want, creating that sort of shadow. There's going to be a light pushing in behind. And right here, this is what I kind of start working on. I want to shape up the top portion so I can keep moving up, create a little bit of a skeleton, some outlining. Some of the darker areas, I kind of block those in. And right here, I'm using a liner, just kind of blocking in some of those areas. My darkest tone, I do believe I'm dipping into a little bit of red in there as well, just so I have that undertone of red in some of those like sort of open skin type areas for the zombie dog. There's a lot of detailing here, so you want to be very aware of that and figure out what that skeleton, as in all the black areas in your design, is, so that way you can block in those black areas. Again, that creates the sort of foundation, the skeleton of your design. Here it looks like I'm starting to get into some grays, some soft grays. I've kind of blocked in a little bit of those light leaks that I was telling you, like these light rays that are coming up behind the zombies and coming up into the zombie dog as well, creating a break in the skin, the negative area. Now I'm just using a mag. It is a 12 gauge 9 curve mag. So I'm usually using 12 gauges. Whenever I'm doing color, I like to use a 12 gauge. It's a bigger needle, and so you're able to pack more color. or actually a better way to describe it would be that your pixel size is bigger, meaning that the needle is bigger, so it's able to puncture a slightly bigger hole, or slightly bigger amount of ink starts to go in, versus like a 12 gauge, or excuse me, a 10 gauge. It's a smaller pixel, smaller needle, really good. You would want to use a 10 for black and gray to create that smooth gradient and that kind of thing. I think it'd be better to switch over to a 12 gauge if you're going to be doing color or packing in any sort of solid color, especially black. I only use curve mags. It gives me that soft edge, you know, and I like to use a lot of pendulum motion to kind of block in and smooth things out. And then eventually I'll move into like a small short stroke, football shape movement, you know what I mean, to really pack in that color. And right here, as you can see, I'm just kind of blocking in some of those soft grays, and then eventually I'll start to come in there with more color. I want to create the shape. And yeah, I'm running that gray right over those blacks that I did. Usually that's not going to become an issue, but I do want to make my blacks that I did with the light tone blacks a little bit darker and a little bit more saturated. Just by running my gray over it, it saturates it a little bit more. And now I'm going into some greens. I've muted down the green using some black, using some dark gray, so that way it's not really bright. A great way that you can mute some of your colors is by using gray tones. Sometimes brown works really well too. It just depends on whether it's a cool area or if it's a warm area. If it's a cool area, you want to use grays. And you do want to, I think if you don't buy an opaque set, it'd be perfect to just create your own gray. You can mix black and white, you know what I mean? And you can create some really cool gray tones, opaques. And then you can create a brown by just pouring out some brown, and then you can make 2 cups of brown, one regular brown, the other one having a little bit of white in it. And then that's an easy way that you can mute some of your dark tones with the regular brown, or your mid to brights, mid to light tones using that lighter brown. And here you can see I'm just kind of blending out a little bit, trying to find the right tone, creating an undertone by adding in that first layer, and then I kind of go over it again, trying to find the right tone. This green was feeling a little see-through, so I had to give it a few passes. And then I finally found a good tone that I like, so I started pressing that a little bit more. This color right here is a good example of, you know, muting down a color. I dipped into a yellow ochre with a little bit of green in my tube already, and the yellow ochre is already a muted yellow. I'm just trying to find the right tone. So this is like my experimental section that I'm gonna base the rest of the greens in the design off of. And I think I really found it there in that area, and I started feeling more confident pushing those colors into the other areas. I'm moving through that section a whole lot faster, as you can tell. Now that I have that green, that sort of understanding of that green that I like for that section. Now doing some detailing, adding those greens, adding some burgundy, you know, for the really deep, fleshy sort of tone that's in the design. Filled out a huge section here, kind of skipping forward a bit. It was a full day tattoo, so it's a lot to go through. I've already built out some of those burgundies, those dark sort of black areas. Like I said, creates the foundation, the structure. And I threw in a little bit of red in there. Now I'm just finishing up that collar. Has some deep grays in there. Really trying to pack in that gray so it stays solid. Finding more of that structure, more of those black and darks that are in the back part of the neck of the dog. And this section did take a little bit because there was a lot of sort of like open fleshy looking elements, and so I had to create a lot of different details. I don't know if anybody's ever tattooed a Freddy Krueger. If you ever tattoo a Freddy Krueger portrait, that takes forever. There's so many little sections that each one has its own darks and lights and gradients and all that because of all the little fleshy bits. Just slowly moving up little by little, adding some grays. Okay, now I'm starting to work on that chin area. Again, same process as before. I got my liner out with a little bit of black and deep red in there, so that way I can create the structure. Finding those shadow areas is very important. I want to make sure that those shadow areas are there first. It makes my life so much easier when I start moving into the mid-tones and into the lighter tones, because I can blend right off of that, you know? I used a combination of Radiant tattoo inks and some Eternal. I love Eternal's warm colors, all of their reds, yellows, the yellow ochres, the oranges. I did have a little bit of Starbright orange out as well. Starbright has some classic colors. I think their classic colors are pretty good. And then the greens, I like to use either Fusion or Solid Ink. Solid Ink has some good greens as well. I feel like the greens from Radiant could be a little bit stronger, and they do feel a little see-through sometimes. I think that's what I was using earlier, and then I started using some Solid Ink. If you haven't had the chance to really test some of your inks, definitely start doing that. Take a moment, grab some of your ink and pour it out. If you have a lighter colored glove, that'd be even better, but you can do it on a regular glove. And pour one yellow out from one brand, and then pour a little bit yellow out from another. As many yellows as you can, and then start rubbing them on the back of like your glove, so then you can start to see whether or not it's a thicker or slightly see-through type of color. The see-through ones you would use to do like an overlay or like a blend. Obviously the thicker ones is what you want to use for packing color. In most cases I like to stick to the thicker type colors. Right now Radiant is really good for their reds and their light tones. They're cool colors, so greens, blues, and that kind of stuff. Sometimes their light greens can be kind of see-through, but this is something that you need to start doing and testing on your own, right, to really learn what works best for you. It'll help you take your game and your understanding of color and inks to the next level. In the beginning, when I was first starting off, I had no idea about this kind of stuff, and so I could tell the difference in my work, that it was just lacking, that it wasn't bold, it didn't really stand out. And then when I started understanding the types of inks that exist, the types of needles that are better for color, and also what speed to have your machine at, what voltage. I always keep my machine at a low speed. That'll allow me to be able to give the skin more passes and saturate a little bit better, press the skin a little bit more without causing so much tearing and chewing up the skin too much. And talking about machines, I'm using an Ambition Soldier. Yes, it's a beginner machine. It is the like Amazon special type machine. I had a Bishop wand and ended up taking a crap on me after about 3 years or so, and I just wasn't able to get it fixed. But in the meantime, I had this machine laying around. I think somebody gave it to me, and so I went ahead and gave it a try, used it, and I was able to bust out some badass tattoos with it, and I've been using it ever since. I think it's been about 2-3 years now, and honestly I don't plan on leaving this machine. It works so well. As you can tell, I'm able to saturate colors really well. I'm able to create black and grays. Anybody who's been following me or seen my pages, seen my Instagram, knows the type of work that I've been able to put out with this machine. And honestly, at $150, you can't beat it. I've had conversations with other artists about tattoo machines that, you know, you don't need to spend $1,000, $700, $800 on a badass machine. Some of these motors do about the same type of work, and it's right now it's on track to outlast my Bishop. So there's that. Okay, so now I'm getting into some more of those reds and pinks, and you can see there I muted with a little bit of gray, a little dull sort of pink tones. It almost looks a little purple when you dip a red or a pink into a gray. It starts to kind of give you that sort of purple look. The zombie dog is, you know, dead flesh. It's not bright and alive necessarily anymore, and so you do have to create some muted tones. Okay, building out some more structure, some dark areas that I might have missed in that nose, the chin, the bottom lip. This was a hard reference to work off of because the photo only existed in one size. Anybody who messes around with, you know, creating portrait tattoos or anything like that knows that you have to get a really good photo. When I zoomed it in to create the zoomed in version, like the portrait style version of the dog, it started to become very pixelated. Some of the stuff looked very blurry. So it was a challenge, but I think I was able to create that look that the zombie dog has, with all the little shine and like wet, sort of bloody skin, rotting flesh type look, you know? All right, getting into some outline. I didn't want to do the classic umbrella logo. I wanted to do something a little bit different with this logo. And I found a pretty good reference that had some, you know, design on the inside of each triangle. And something that just stands out a little bit more than just the regular red and white, you know, because I could have just blasted straight up red and white, gave it that sort of graphic look. So I gave it like a nice bold outline. But then you'll see right now in a bit the designing and all that. There's a little bit of black that happens in the umbrella. I lay that down first, and then I throw my colors right over that, and you'll see how it looks. I really love the way it came out. All right, see there, I added a little bit of blacks in the nose and some areas that I feel like it needed a little bit more contrast. Originally, I had just laid down my main sort of like dark mid-tone black or mid-tone color, and then I came back with a little bit of black mixed in with some red, and then that gives it a nice bold look, you know. My client was sitting so well. This is his first massive tattoo. Actually, no, this was his first tattoo. This was his first tattoo. He was definitely, you know, go big or go home. And he did really well. The calf can be a sensitive area. Me personally, my calf sucked. I hated every second of it. And this guy, he did so well. He handled it, you know, like a G. And I was actually really happy with, you know, how he was sitting. No movement, no fidgeting, no nothing. I did help him out a little bit, sprayed some Bactine. That can take the edge off, you know. Don't lie to your clients and tell them that it's going to numb the tattoo. It doesn't fully numb. It just kind of like creates like a little bit of, you know, it kind of takes away the sharpness for a bit. And then eventually after about 20-30 minutes, it comes right back anyway. All right, looks like I threw in that background using a combination of pendulum and whipping to sort of like push out that color a little bit further than the umbrella. Laid down a soft sort of a mid-tone green, a muted green, similar to what we were using towards the bottom in the background. And now I dipped into a little bit of black just to put it right up at the edge of the umbrella logo to match up the line work that we did. Here's that detailing that I was talking about. In the reference, it had these like solid black areas with some gray tones, some like shadowing texture, if you will. And I like the way it looked. I think it added a really cool look rather than just the solid red and white for the umbrella logo. I had to do very light in the white parts of the umbrella. So it's very light. You can barely see it in some sections. And then here's my red. This red is from Radiant. I think it's called El Rojo. Dude, this thing fucking packed so well. And it looks so bright. Really love this red. I used to be a big fan. Well, I still am a big fan of Fusion's Really Red. Still a really good red. I think this one feels a little bit more bright. You know, gives it that sort of like American traditional sort of look. And I used it throughout the rest of the tattoo as well, but definitely planned and had it set out for this section right here. Next, after the red, we're going to start doing some of the white, and then you'll see how I pack in that white on the top part of the umbrella and you can really see it too. We did use a mag. Here I'm using a 7-liner. I always get out a fresh needle for the white, so that way there's no having to clean out my needle or chance of it getting muddied. There was a lot of white in this one. You know, I had to go throughout the whole design and figure out where all those little bits and pieces are, because it's supposed to be like wet, sort of zombie skin that's, you know, still fleshy and, you know, rotting and all that. So there's lots of little light leaks and things like that. But you know what? It made a huge difference. Once I laid that down, the contrast of the darks and everything really set it apart. And at this point, my client was, you know, having a hard time, but he did really well. Again, this is that part where I was telling you the packing of the white. I used my mag, another fresh needle, a 12 gauge 11 curved mag, short movements, getting really tight in there and kind of giving it several overlaps as well. Whenever you lay down your needle and you start packing in color, if you overlap right then and there, that's the best time without tearing up the skin to be able to pack as much color as possible. If you can make the color pack into the skin the very first time you lay down the needle, you're going to get the absolute best result. And I can't wait for you guys to see how it came out. Super excited for this one. Let me know what you think in the comment, guys.